you made extremely brilliant speech in the Great Hall about techno-feudalism and all the problems, and you told that tech should make people free. But what about the global power, the deep state, the oligarchs, the capitalism that wanna exploitate simple people?
Well, I think they actually didn't imagine by themselves. Before, they are just some young guy like you in a garage, until they find out that their data actually covers billions of people. You see that in X, in Meta. You can imagine those apps and their database as a nation. And it's even more than a nation, because they are citizens, if you can call them citizens, or subjects, are all over the world. They know every bit of your life. They can predict your behavior. Exactly. They can control your mind. Well, my argument is they don't know about that when they start everything from the garage, but later it evolves to that kind of extent. Imagine you have that kind of power. Will you use it? Well, as a human being, you will use it, and you will exploit it. So you are going to transcend it to a higher position to control people. So the next thing you know is that they're trying to, control everybody's mind by their thoughts.
Even without chips in the brain.
Yes, and somebody else will accumulate the wealth they cannot use probably in 100 years. And many of them try to reproduce in an immoral way. They will buy like eggs. They will, use the DNA technology to replicate their children. Many, many children. So right now I think they are going off the right way to be a normal human being. They try to be something more superior, but it's out of control. Not even out of the control of the whole society. They're going too far, and also as a person, they are going out of control for themselves. They don't know what's going to happen, but they just keep on going. So this is actually very, very dangerous. Well, do you know the history of the empires? We used to have kingdoms, right? But kingdoms only happens before we have industrialization. When you can only make like 10 knives and shields a day, you wouldn't have empires. You only have kings. So the war are actually very cheap and small. But when you have industrial revolution, when you can make rifles and Mausers with 10,000s a day, you can have the war as bad as First World War and Second World War. That is because the Kaisers, the Tsars, the kings and the emperors, they for the first time mastered the power more than any kings, emperors in the history. They don't know what's going to happen. So they just happily used it until they find there are genocide. There are the splitting of their country. All the consequences that they can never afford, right? So when Alexander the Great, when Peter the Great have the war, it wouldn't be that bad. But when Hitler, when Mussolini waged the war, it's going to be devastating. It's because the technology and industry has changed. So when we're talking about old oligarchs, like the one who, monopolized a certain trade, well, previously can be okay because their multiplication can be limited. For example, more product you sell and made actually will require you to have more of the cost. 1 bread, 2 bread, 3 bread. The more you make, actually, it's going to get cheaper and then getting more expensive because the management cost is going to be higher and higher, larger and larger. But in the digital era, the marginal cost is going to near zero because one Microsoft Windows you sell or a billion Windows you sell is basically a different thing. You can sell the number 1 billions of the Microsoft app at probably the price of zero. So they can be as large as they can. Nobody can control them. And also the multiply of the data and the big language model, the large language model based on those data, which can predict your behavior, analyze all the complicated connections, become possible. So they're not only control the money like the old riches, like the old oligarchs, they control your mind, which the kings, emperors, old oligarchs never can imagine. It's like, the old kings never can imagine what kind of the scale of the war that Hitler can wage. And now, this new, it's not tech feudalism anymore. It's tech imperialism. It's tech colonialism. A smaller country wouldn't have a chance. If you go to Ethiopia, if you go to Zimbabwe, you ask them, do you have your own Facebook? No, they don't have it. Their data are on server of America, right? Even the rich places like Europe, they don't have their own fire wars. Your data is in America, if you are German. So that's the reason why the only fight they can make is to have this, monopoly law to fight against, Alphabet, which is the country of Google, and also Meta, just to give them some fine. Come on, $2 billion fine means nothing to them.
Absolutely, that's why Marx and Lenin later wrote their papers about imperialism, and they meant that imperialism is about no kings and emperors, but about corporations. We see that now after 100 years.
Yes. At that moment, when the new Tsars, when the new Caesars rise up in the first industrial revolution, so the kings has mastered the power, unprecedented powers, more than the old emperors like Alexander the Great, like the Napoleon. So it get out of control. When they get out of the control with their own power, they will overwhelm the normal people, the ordinary people, small families, small farmers, and everybody. And people get desperate. That's the reason why you see the rise of Lenin. You see the rise of Soviet Russia, because these people need to fight back. Otherwise, they can be wiped out in this desperate, grinding industrial revolution. Do you know that in the 1900s, the best job, I'm not talking about in the old Russia, I'm talking about in UK, in 1900, the best job a 14-year-old boy living near Manchester can imagine is only 20 cents per hour. And he need to work for 12 or 14 hours a day to barely get enough food.
Child labor, 6-7 years, little babies with great injuries for the health.
Yes. So that is the history. Now you compare the history to now. And today's, technology empires mastered the similar power. Right? It's not like you're an owner of a Coca-Cola or Mercedes, you're just rich. But they control your mind and your pocket. And for the first time, young people are squeezed to the corner. When my father grew up, he can get married in a very young age. And he can get a job, and the job will help him to get a small apartment, not very luxurious, but at least it's an apartment. He can be an adult immediately. But take a look at the current young people. They don't even feed themselves until like the late 20s. They got a master's degree, doctorate degree, but they don't, have the privilege to find a life. It's not their fault. It's the society that have taken away everything because winner takes off. And the data takes off. You don't have data. You don't have a job, you don't have experiences. Before you get a job, you are required to have 10 years experiences, and you don't have a fuck time to get this 10 years experiences before you get a job, right? So it's like a paradox. So young people are squeezed to the corner in the opposite way. So by age, you have already been an adult. Maybe you're already in your 30s, but in your mindset, you're still a child. In your livelihood, in your expenditure or consumption model, you're just a child. You still rely on the other people's money. So that is not a good news because you're taking away your natural rights.
So you believe that young people, that the young generation will fight for themselves and against corporations, against the imperialists?
Yes, I think it's happening. Look, every industrial revolution always brings opportunities and risk. Like I just mentioned, when the new industrial revolution happens, the energy, the transportation, and information, when it happens together, and then it will stir the war. Because with new technology, everybody don't want stay behind. They want to fight for it. They want to have the bigger turf for themselves. So always when there's new technology and then the fight for the resources, and then there's a war. Okay? But during this kind of the chaos, young people will have their time. I'm not saying you need to have a war like before. We are not warmongers. But we can have a fight culturally, technologically with the young people. Just take a look currently. We have already seen the prelude. In Nepal, they have the youngest prime minister, born in the 1990s. He's a rapper. And we have seen many young leaders that have been rising up, not by fighting a war, but fighting a fight with their mind, with culture.
What about that? If that young prime minister will be not effective, not competent enough, maybe other countries should support them. Is it possible? Can China support new government? Where is the line between involvement in others' sovereign business and just supporting young nations? I don't know.
Well, a lot of people say young people is not trustworthy. They say, "Oh, take a look at my son. My son only watches comics. He just vaping and go to the club every day, rapping. He's just an imbecile, moron." But the point is that the reason or the result? I believe that's the result. Why a 20 years old lived in like 1960s or 70s are already qualified to be a father, to be a man, to be a mother, right? Why now it's just young kids or old kids? It's because the society has been taken away the opportunity to live an adult life, so that they only can stay in this way to give themselves a safe harbor. They hide in the games, they hide in the comic books. You see, I believe if we give the young people an opportunity, they will give you a lot of the surprises, good surprises. Just take a look at the AI. Well, AI is just one epitomization. Because if you go through all the AI, the top scientists recently, go to the big companies, you will find out that young scientists, 20-something, they revolutionized the large language model by the old guys. So
you believe that new tech will support, will help the young generation, the whole humanity, but the owners of the tech, what about the biggest companies, the Nasdaq companies, they don't want it. We sometimes hear the phrases like Klaus Schwab, Davos Forum, and Bill Gates, that 8 billion people is too much. We need maybe 2 billion or half a billion or maybe 300 million people for the whole world. And it seems that they try to depopulate the whole earth. How can we fight against it?
Well, that's a very great question. Number one, they probably want to do that so that they can control, the resistance from behind, from downside. But eventually, they're going to find out economy is all about people. By definition, economy means trade. Trade means we switch our resources. Without people, the whole economic size will shrink. So when you try to kill the population, when you try to curb so-called lower end population or the grassroots community, eventually you're killing yourself. You're taking away your own power. You're taking away your own business, your own money. Just imagine if we're living in a world with only 1 billion people, would all these oligarchs, would all these rich tech companies have the wealth they have today? No, they wouldn't. And if they live in an economy with only 100 people, there won't be even large language model because there are only small data and small trade. So they will find about the truth. So they wouldn't do that eventually to small or the suppress, so-called grassroots community. And secondly, what they do later is that when they find out, okay, I should let this population exist, I have to do two things instead. Number one, I have to reproduce. I have to have hundreds and thousands of my own kids. I have to let my DNA reproduce.
Like the Elon Musk.
Like Elon Musk, exactly. And secondly, my own DNA sometimes will mutate. So I cannot guarantee every child is an elite. So genetic engineering is happening, it's already happening. And thirdly, if it's still not enough, I will buy good young people. It's also happening today. If you are a Russian genius with mathematics, if you are found by a great AI company, they immediately give you $1 million salary per month. And then you join them. And then the question goes to you. Would you join them, or would you use your power to do good and to benefit your own fellow young people?
So you hope that their greed will prepare them to depopulate the earth. But if and when all the models and artificial intelligence will be already learned, they will have a bottom to solve every problem, every question. Maybe after 20, 30 years, that's not really long term actually. And what then?
Well, you see, the very much existence for human societies is like we need each other. Well, a lot of rich people probably will think, why do I need the poor people? I need to scrub my toilet. I need them to give me, a delivery services. That's it. I can do that with a robot. They always think of that. But you have to understand why we can have the wisdom as a human being, not like animals. Why we have all these kind of new ideas and the breakthroughs in technology is when we talk to people. When human beings different from animals, number one, we have memories, long-term memories. Number two, we have languages. So which means I can learn from his experiences to give me new thoughts. And the new thoughts, sometimes when they accumulated to a larger enough size, they will explode to make breakthroughs in technology. It's like when an apple fall on Newton's head and then they found gravity. So this kind of what we call the mind mutation, good mutation, only happens when you have enough numbers of people. So if you only have 100 people in a tribe, even though every person in that tribe is 100 person, are billionaires, it doesn't give you anything. And after 4 generations, this 100 people will go back to prehistoric time. They become chimps.
So in general, you believe that human more valuable than all the tech?
Human is more valuable than all the techs. The reason why we're thinking about that is because we still have this modern body, modern industry, and modern technology, but we still have a preemptive, a prehistorical mind, which comes from 50,000 years ago. When our ancestors believe we only have very limited food and shelter, and we have more people to share it, so you need to kill the extra to get enough food for yourself, to get more opportunity for the reproductions for yourself. But if you just humor me a little bit, if you jump over to the top of the sky, if you stand on Mars, you look at the whole universe, you tell me, if there are more people than the sand, than all the resources in the universe, or if there are more the resources and the sand and the rocks and metals and energies than human. Human, the Western animals, is probably the most scarce resources in the whole universe. We have gazillions of stars, but we only have 7 billion population. Well, maybe they have aliens, but would you get married to an alien?
No, it's a great question to finish our conversation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.